I think you do have to be a little jaded if you're not just flabbergasted by what's happening in Britain with this kid, Charlie Gard, who apparently suffers from some disorder, some cellular disorder that's very rare. I haven't been following up on it too much. This is kind of a video response to H.A. Goodman, who is a progressive YouTube journalist, makes a lot of videos that I really do like. Very intelligent guy. He is a progressive, pretty far on the other side of the spectrum from me, but he's not somebody who tries to jump through hoops in order to really just satisfy his own ego. I guess he does have a little of an ego, because I see him all the time trying to smack down TYT and Jordan Sheridan, which to me is kind of amusing. But I think he's one of the less pretentious progressive people on the journalism side. More, I think also he has a stronger code of ethics than that. So I'm going to try to make this like a more of a respectful video. A lot of other people that I read about, especially the Obamacare supporters, I'll be like much more hardcore when going after them, because that's just blatant lying. I think the single payer people have more of a ideological spine. They have something that they are leaning on, but it's something that, in my opinion, they have to make a choice if they want it to work. So yes, single payer healthcare, there are systems around the world where you do see a highly functioning and satisfactory service sector for the healthcare industry. That's single payer, government run healthcare. Those are countries that generally, I believe, have much stricter immigration policies than the US or even Europe. And let's read through the story very briefly. The Supreme Court has rejected an appeal by the parents of sick baby Charlie Gard over plans to take him to the US for treatment. Chris Gard and Connie Yates want the 10-month-old who suffers from a rare genetic condition. Sorry, I got some freezing here. This is going to come back to haunt me. It's really, I can't stand this slow computer. Trying to make this story work. Trying to respond to H.A. Goodman, but it's not letting me. Want the 10-month-old who suffers from a rare genetic condition to go to the United States for treatment. Charlie can stay on life support for 24 hours to give the European Court of Human Rights a chance to give a ruling. He has been in intensive care at Great Ormond Street Hospital since October of last year. This report, by the way, is from the BBC from June. So this isn't a new story. This isn't something that's been concocted. It's by now actually pretty famous. The hospital said therapy proposed by a doctor in America is experimental and that Charlie's life support treatment should stop. Charlie has mitochondrial depletion syndrome, a rare disorder that affects the genetic building blocks that give energy to cells. From what I understand, the mitochondria in cellular structure, those are the organelles that they're basically, they metabolize, I think, glucose within cells. And this is, remember, I'm drawing on 9th grade biology, which is the last time I took it. But I do remember that at least. But you might want to check it out. The family division of the High Court agreed 2 months ago that the hospital could withdraw Charlie's child's life support. His parents have raised more than $1.3 million through an internet appeal in the hope they could take him to America for an experimental treatment. A spokesman for Great Ormond Street Hospital said it was a very sad day for Charlie's parents and family. It is never easy when medical and judicial opinion goes against the wishes of the parents, but our first responsibility at Great Ormond Street Hospital remains to put the interests of the child first and foremost. It is also hugely difficult for any clinically trained professional to be asked to treat a child who has no chance of survival or even improvement in his quality of life. For now, our priority is to ensure Charlie remains well cared for and to offer our support to Charlie's devoted parents at this distressing time. Friends of the family stood outside the court ahead of the hearing, holding pictures of the 10-month-old and chanting, "Save Charlie Gard and give him a chance." Inside, his parents waited for the decision. This is the final court in the UK able to hear their case. Just as Lady Hale began by praising their devotion, as parents we would all want to do the same, she said. But as judges, and not as parents, they were concerned with the legal position, and the proposed appeal, she said, was refused. Charlie's mother, Connie, left court wailing and shouting, "They've put us through hell." Chris, Charlie's father, held his head in his hands and cried. This may, though, not be the end. They want to try to take... So, you know, there's been a few developments since then. I think they've tried to bring him to America, and there's some sort of a court ruling in the UK that prevents that. So what's my position on this, and why do I think that this is an indictment of the single-payer healthcare model? Although, you know, I'm not going to say this happens conclusively with every single treatment, but this shows the potential of what could happen. And H.A. Goodman is, you know, he went and made a video where he compared this pouncing on the single-payer system to the way conservatives relate to the Iraq War and things like that, where he said, "Oh, well, whenever wars don't go well, we never say let's not do any more wars." Actually, H.A. Goodman, that's not the best analogy, but let's put that let's address that for a second. Yes, sometimes you do have to you do have to say that we should exercise more caution given past experiences, and the experience in the Iraq War. First of all, yes, you should adjust your method to be to perform better if you have to go back into the same situation. And ideally, you would not want to face the same situation again where you're at a disadvantage. In the case of the Iraq War, that kind of means not getting involved in the same way that we got involved in 1991 and 2003, that's a different topic. If you're comparing healthcare and war, then you know you do have to draw on a few nuances. Okay, but I think he kind of did say, "Oh yeah, we do make a few adjustments." That's what H.A. Goodman said. So I don't think that he was being totally facetious about it. I don't think he was, or that he was being obtuse about it, saying, "Oh well, you never want to go back to war." Or you never want to stop going to war. Why are you trying to say the single payer is not going to work? Well, yes, there is an issue where single payer must. You can't just ask for single payer in isolation from everything else and expect things to happen that will facilitate it being a success. Okay, a single payer does not exist in a vacuum. The health insurance industry does not exist in a vacuum. The healthcare infrastructure does not exist in a vacuum. So let's put a few of these topics on the table. We have here, for example, a kid who has a very rare condition. In a system like the United Kingdom, they do not have the available resources to perform research and devote enough time and treatment to a patient like this, because remember, the system must be equal access for everybody. And in the United Kingdom, you might know they do have a problem of health tourism from the third world. There's people coming in, they're not British citizens, they're using the system for their routine care, and therefore, because it's a universal healthcare system, that cost gets covered by the UK government, and it's sunk cost. They're not going to get that back. These people are not going to pay their bill often. They're indigent. They're coming from the third world. And it's hard to collect from them. So you have a massive debt that's being incurred. This is a cost that's not, you can't cap it. There is no cap for healthcare costs in the United Kingdom. So therefore, when you have all of these patients coming in from abroad and glutting the system, it puts tremendous strain on the professionals and the suppliers of the system. Every single phase of the system in the UK, whether it's the actual health professionals, the physicians, the nurses, the technicians, the staff, the maintenance staff, all of that, they have to be paid in order to provide that service. Now, if there's a requirement that everybody be served, and the payer is the government, then you have to address first, how are you paying for all those people? Now, the first solution is to raise more taxes. Now, you can do that. Okay, we're talking scenarios here. I'm not talking judging you what to do or not to do. Progressives and H.A. Goodman among you. If you want to raise taxes, okay, so let's say you picked to raise taxes. Then you will have an issue where you will have capital flight, which is a huge issue of the United Kingdom. They have a number of tax shelters abroad. I believe Bermuda is one of them, the Channel Islands, which is actually quite close to the United Kingdom, and is part of the United Kingdom. Those are banks where they just hide their money, and but they just pretend that oh, well, we're kind of part of the UK, except when you're trying to tax people. Then we're part of, then we're here to service you, the customer. So you have to talk about capital flight, and capital flight will continue to be a problem. If it was not those places, people would stash their money somewhere else. Okay, that's what happens when you raise taxes. So I'm just talking cause and effect here. Okay, I'm not trying to call you anything. I respect H.A. Goodman in particular as a journalist, as opposed to some of these wackos on the left that call him some idiot. This guy's he's a good journalist. He just is. I don't give a fuck whether he agrees with me or not. He probably won't agree with me on 95% of my views. Then the other option besides raising taxes is also to keep wages down for the employees, which is what is happening, in fact, in the UK healthcare system, the NHS. I remember recently I was watching a debate. I made a video about it where a nurse, was asking why there was only a 1% pay increase per year for these NHS nurses, and she was. How was she supposed to answer that question? I don't remember what she did say, but what she should have said is this: we don't have enough adequate funds in order to pay more people when our service is actually being used more, and we're required by law to provide it. So this is not a profitable business, the National Health Service, and it's not meant to be. It's not. This is the way that progressives intended their healthcare system to be. It's intended to be for the people and as a public service, as a right. Healthcare is a human right. And once you do that, once you guarantee this service as a human right, then you have to stretch the blanket in either way. You have to go through either taxation or through limiting wages and salaries, and then there's another option, you have to diminish the quality of the service. And that's unfortunately a choice that is often, it's not even a choice often. If you do not have available funds to conduct research, or to pay for, if the NHS doesn't have money to pay for the more revolutionary or experimental treatments, then there really is nowhere for them to go. So, in closing, and it's actually a late night right now. I did have a nap today, but I do have to get up for work tomorrow. H.A. Goodman should have to, he has to recognize this, okay? The Charlie Gard case is a textbook issue of public option, or more specifically, because a public option is kind of a bullshit term, but the universal single-payer healthcare. It's a textbook example of it when you have a system that is running out of control. Why is it running out of control? Because of A, immigration, B, because of the lack of growth in the United Kingdom economy. There simply is not enough of a manufacturing base. There is not enough of an economic base to draw upon that would not flee from the United Kingdom if they were to impose really draconian taxes. If, for example, this Jeremy Corbyn guy had been elected Prime Minister of the UK, you would have seen disasters of an epic level in terms of capital flight. We would have seen the British economy transform overnight into a basket case. And I think it's very fortunate that we didn't see Jeremy Corbyn elected, because you would have really seen the system basically melt down right in front of us. And a lot of these issues in the United Kingdom, they are, they transcend their system over there. Okay, why did they have that Grenfell Tower issue? Well, you had cheap public housing that was built in the 60s and 70s by a Labour government, that they were trying to do the quote-unquote right thing for the working class, and in the end, that type of project in the long run, let's say for 40 years or however long it stood, the Grenfell Tower was a great, it provided a great product in that case, or I don't know whether you call housing a product or a service, but it was a great asset for the community of people that lived there. Well, eventually those things have to be maintained. Public property has to be maintained. These hospitals have to be maintained. I'm talking about the physical quality of the property. You can't have a hospital that's, you got leaky faucets and raw sewage pouring through it or whatever. Not that I'm saying that it's the case over here, but in the United Kingdom, but these types of things, they require an investment of services and investment of supplies and products, investment of personnel. This isn't a joke. I mean, we're not trying. Us free market conservatives, we're taking the problem seriously too. Just because we seem to be heartless pieces of shit, it doesn't mean that we're not thinking hard about how to provide the best service. Because from my perspective, okay, this is where I differ from you. You are more worried about providing the service to as many people as possible. In my book, and I'm not a health professional, I'm a mechanical engineering professional. My objective is to provide the best service, to provide the best solution. Doesn't matter how many people buy it. And in time, I believe that if you provide enough well-quality services, and in this case it's very specialized, but the competition and the ability for people to choose between the best option for them, that will at least help as many people as possible. We can't guarantee that everybody is always going to get a great outcome, but if we can improve service and through innovation and competition, that's the way we would aim to help people overcome these types of tragedies. And you can see that in this case, Charlie Gard, there happens to be something available to help him in the United States. Now, this could be, you could say, oh, it just happens to be coincidentally that in a non-single payer system, the solution exists, and in a single payer system, a solution doesn't exist. Okay, fine. So let's say it was a coincidence. Nevertheless, the United Kingdom is heading towards a number of crises related to the National Health Service. So, in conclusion, I think there's a lot more things for you to really explore in regards to this topic. I love your pieces, H.A. Goodman, and anybody else out there on the progressive side that wants to talk about this. You should really look at how other factors impact that sector of the economy. So if you want a universal healthcare system, you have to realize then you might have to give up on refugees immigrating into your country, because they constitute a heavy strain on your service, on your sector. They must be by law served by the National Health Service. You might have to talk about rationing care anyway, because there are certain treatments that are in limited supply. There is a limited number of physicians available to provide them. It's not as if there's endless orthopedists. And you also have to talk about, and this must be emphasized above everything else, malpractice issues. How big are the risks and rewards of a malpractice in the system? In the United States, we're attempts to practice that I've gotten into, but you have to recognize first that that's an issue, which I have. You should too. Pharmaceutical companies interact with doctors, whether there is a corruption there or not, and how the market is controlled or not, and how regulation affects it. I worked in the medical devices industry. Regulation is a heavy burden in that industry, and that drives the cost up. So you have to start talking about the other factors. You can't just request or demand, is what you're doing, single payer universal health care in a vacuum. You have to acknowledge that there's other issues that are critical to address first, and or in conjunction with it, if you're even going to advocate for it, because otherwise you will basically load the system up with so many burdens that it will cause instant collapse. And I think that we'll see some more of these issues cropping up in the near future. Anyway, so have a good night. I hope H.A. Goodman sees this, even though I have like a pretty low, I have a low subscriber count, but I think that if he would watch this, he'd kind of get a little more of an appreciation of why we say these things about the single payer system. It's not in order just to make fun of you. I mean, like I said, there are single payer systems, I think, in a few countries like Singapore that had functioned very well, but the other conditions must be accounted for. You can't just talk about it as a standalone topic. So have a great night. This is Ramon with Bold Like a Leopard, and stay on your toes. Let's talk about all these issues: single payer, Obamacare, whatever you want. We'll be returning to it in the next few days as the holiday kind of seeps into the